LG. It is only 2 letters, but one of the largest, most diverse conglomerates in the world, to a point where even trying to understand the full extent of it can be overwhelming. As of 2003, LG Corporation is a holding company that owns a significant portion of all these other LG companies, probably the most recognizable one in the US being LG Electronics, where they own 33.7% of it. See, as a way to rebuild after the Korean War, the South Korean government started giving special treatment to certain companies that became known as chaebols. It has been a risky and controversial strategy, but over the years, the government has given these companies special loans or tax incentives to help them grow and succeed, because that is beneficial to the country. Typically, chaebols are family-owned and involved in a bunch of different areas, with some of the biggest examples being Samsung, Hyundai, and of course, LG. Chaebols represent about half of the value on the South Korean stock market, and considering LG is among the most valuable ones, the condition of it can potentially have an impact on the country's overall economy. What I'm saying is that if LG were to fail, it would not be good for South Korea, and that would obviously have consequences throughout the rest of the world, so already we can start to see the importance of it. And trust me when I say that, it would be impractical for me to try to outline the evolution and structure of LG throughout its 75+ year history. It involves dozens of companies that have gone through major changes and thousands of products. So for this video, my goal is to help you understand the size, reach, and impact of LG by highlighting what I believe to be 7 of their most significant sales categories throughout its history. Starting, logically, at the beginning with possibly the most unexpected category on the list, cosmetics. The company that became LG technically started as a cosmetics company in 1947 with the launch of its first product branded as Lucky Cream. I guess the word lucky was chosen because it sounds a lot like the Korean word lak-hee, meaning giving joy to all. Considering it was the first makeup cream in Korea, they sold a lot of it and were able to extend the brand with related products, like Lucky Toothpaste in 1954. In 2001, LG Household and Healthcare became its own company specializing in consumer products like this, and currently that company is the owner of multiple recognizable brands throughout South Korea and other parts of the world. I also want to mention here that in 2007, LG Household and Healthcare paid almost $300 million for a Coca-Cola bottling company with exclusive rights to the brand in South Korea. They have since acquired and started additional beverage brands, helping them become a major beverage provider in the country. Next up on the list is chemicals, because those early cosmetics products led to the establishment of the Lucky Chemical Company. In 1952, 5 years after that original cream was released, they started making plastic combs and soap dishes with the first injection molding machine in the country, followed by the first PVC pipe in the country. In 1995, it was renamed LG Chem, and that company is currently considered to be the largest chemical company in South Korea and among the largest in the world. It is involved in all sorts of areas that you would expect from a chemical company, various materials, pharmaceuticals, and starting in the 1990s, batteries have been so important that I am separating it into the next category on my list. In 1992, LG Chem started researching lithium-ion batteries and were mass producing them by the end of the decade. By 2009, they were the exclusive supplier to GM for batteries used in the Chevy Volt, and over the next decade built multiple plants in different countries, including the US and China, dedicated to the production of electric vehicle batteries. In 2020, they said that the demand for these batteries was so high that they would spin that segment off into its own company called LG Energy Solution that is currently valued at around $50 billion on the stock market. A lot of that valuation stems from the fact that they provide batteries to most of the major automakers, including GM, Ford, Toyota, and Tesla. And on top of that, they make batteries for a bunch of other devices, including phones, laptops, even electric bicycles and power tools. I know I've been moving fast here, but I'm going to slow down a little bit as I go back to the list with another major product category for LG: appliances. was. They had been making appliances going all the way back to 1958 when they made their first electric fan under the brand name Gold Star that soon became a widely recognizable brand. That right there was the name attached to their first radios the following year, along with their first refrigerators, washing machines, and televisions in the 1960s, all of which they claim were the first to be mass-produced within the country. Early on, their strategy was to establish themselves and grow their operations by making simple, inexpensive appliances to be sold domestically before raising their quality and becoming more of a global brand starting in the 1980s. By 1995, they were widely recognized under two separate brand names, Lucky for the cosmetics and chemicals, and Gold Star for the appliances and electronics. So after surveying employees and customers about it, they took the first letter from each of those brands and renamed everything LG to simplify everything with a more uniform corporate identity. They introduced that smiley, winky face logo as a friendly and somewhat clever representation of the brand, and in 2003, they started promoting it in the United States with the tagline, "Life's Good." I think a lot of people assume that is what those letters stand for, as if all this was not confusing enough. So to be clear, those letters technically stand for Lucky Gold Star. The next category on my list was already mentioned along with the previous category, but I have a lot more to say about televisions. The company's first TVs were sold under the name Gold Star in Korea, but the first ones sold in the United States were sold to department stores like Sears and sold to the customer under their brand names. In 1977, however, Gold Star sold a 19-inch television under its own brand in the United States that became popular and led to them constructing a TV factory in the US 5 years later. In 1995, to strengthen their presence in the US market, they acquired majority control of a major television manufacturer called Zenith. It was actually the last major television manufacturer in the US, and they paid about $350 million for it. Throughout the 1990s, they had also been researching and developing liquid crystal displays, LCDs, that ultimately led to a joint venture with LG Electronics and Philips by the end of the decade called LG Philips LCD. Throughout the 2000s, that company made a lot of innovations, developing the first 42-inch, 52-inch, 55-inch, and 100-inch HD TV LCD displays. In 2008, Philips left that partnership, and shortly after, the company was renamed LG Display. In the years since, they have been transitioning away from LCD displays toward OLED displays, selling the last of their LCD factories to TCL in 2025. I feel like I'm really saying a lot of letters here. Well, the OLED displays are used in televisions, computer monitors, vehicles, even cell phones, including some iPhones, and that gives me the perfect transition into the next category, cell phones. Now, I should be clear that even though LG Display still makes display panels for cell phones, and LG Energy Solutions still makes batteries for cell phones, and LG Innotek makes components for cell phones, LG Electronics no longer makes the actual phones. But I really felt like I should keep it on the list because LG used to be a top 3 cell phone manufacturer. I will admit that there was a time when I knew about LG primarily because of their cell phones. Their first one came out in 2002, but the one that I remember the most is the LG Chocolate from 2006. It sold over 20 million units, and to be honest, I probably would have tried to get one if I were a Verizon customer. I mean, it would literally be coming out of chocolate in the commercials, and then the number pad would slide out from the bottom. I remember that being a pretty cool design at the time, and a lot of these LG phones were known for having unique designs and innovative features. I have to respect the fact that LG was one of the few brands that remained popular once smartphones started taking over. Oddly enough, and you might not believe your ears when you hear this, but I promise, LG teamed up with the fashion brand Prada to release a touchscreen phone months before the iPhone came out, and then practically accused Steve Jobs of copying the design of it. In 2010, LG released their first official smartphone, the Optimus One, and as late as 2013, they were the third largest smartphone maker behind Apple and Samsung. However, over the next few years, the segment started losing market share. It was reporting major losses, so they announced that they would be shutting it down so they could shift that focus over to more promising areas. Finally, the last category I want to talk about today is communications, because I want to draw attention to the fact that LG has a major presence in something that has very little to do with chemicals or electronics. In the 1990s, shortly after telecommunications were deregulated in South Korea, LG started its own telecom company called, well, LG Telecom. In 2010, the name of it was changed to LGU+, and it continued on to become the second largest wireless provider in the country, with something like 20 million subscribers. I do not have too much more to say here, other than the fact that you can see how the different businesses complement or relate to each other. So you could see how, especially if you live in South Korea, it can be hard to avoid LG. It has become an important part of multiple industries throughout its home country and many other parts of the world. So that is the list of what I believe to be the most significant and the most interesting parts of LG, but I want to be clear that it is not a complete list. I have yet to mention their semiconductors as part of LG Innotek, their IT services called LG CNS, which stands for Consulting and Solutions, their advertising agency, or LG Sports. That company includes a professional baseball team in Korea called the LG Twins and a basketball team called the LG Sakers. So you can see how all of this just keeps on going, depending on how deep you want to get into it. Again, my intention here was to provide an overview of the most important parts of LG throughout its history, so with that in mind, tell me if you think something should be added or subtracted from the list. And also, let me know in the comments, what do you think about LG? Has the unusual structure and evolution of it resulted in some good products and a strong brand, or do you feel differently about it? In reality, a lot of their products and services do not reach everyday consumers, and even when they do, a lot of the time it can be hard to realize it, helping explain why LG is in fact bigger than you know. But as far as the stuff that you do know about, maybe you have a television or a refrigerator made by LG, what do you think about it? Oh, and if anyone out there has ever owned that LG chocolate cell phone or any of the others, how was it? Because I never got to own one, and I'm just curious about how they were. And any other thoughts you have about LG or any of their numerous businesses, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.